Hi everybody, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small, and I've got Jake with me, and we're going to be doing a review of the
Tau Codex.
So I'm not a Tau player. I haven't actually looked at the book. Jake has. He's our resident Tau player. So we're going to get a Tau player's perspective, plus I might make a random unuseful comment every once in a while.
He's just here to bounce ideas off, basically.
Right.
This review is going to be a little different than most that you see just online in general. I'm only going to cover stuff that really kind of excites me and just touch on the main stuff. The funny thing about this book is a lot of it really hasn't changed, like stat-wise. Most of it is around points reduction. Probably like 30% of the units in this book have had a point reduction in some manner. But I'll just start at the top and just go through. So the first thing that we come across is that drones have changed just slightly. Our Savior protocol, basically instead of just automatically getting it, it's on a 2+, which I know I'll just have a hard time remembering that just because it's such an easy thing I feel like to forget now. Master of War hasn't changed for any of the commanders. For the greater good is all the same. All of our commanders, some of them have changed in points slightly. The biggest change for the Tau is no more commander spam. You can only have one commander per detachment, which is mainly good, because if that trend continued into this book, it would definitely be even more overpowered than it was previously. The downside to that, though, is a lot of cool people have the commander keyword to them. So, I mean, it's good, probably you can't take it, but like Farsight has it, Commander Shadowsun has it, so you're missing out on all, not just the generic commander, which people like to spam, but you're missing out on a bunch of other named commanders too.
Is the Cold Star battlesuit a commander?
Yes, the Cold Star is, and it's funny you mention that because he has actually got a lot better, not points-wise or anything, but he was, when he was sold in the box, he was just stuck with the weapons that were on him. So if you've seen our battle reports before, how I have him modeled is how he used to only come. But now he can take any weapons he wants, which is pretty cool. So I've just been reading online, a lot of people are just giving him fusion, because he can move 20 inches and then just fusion something in the back, which is pretty cool.
That's kind of scary. So I like this new rule. I hope it's a trend for other codexes where you can only have one commander per detachment, because that's one of my pet peeves when I see lists. I heard there was some recent tournament where they had some guy had like 7 hive tyrants and mucilid spores and just spam those, or people that would play with 3 shield captains.
Those are the only ones I had painted.
Or a Space Marine force that has like multiple captains in it, which fluff wise, I mean, I suppose you could come up with the rare circumstance that might happen, but really, these guys should be out on their own, doing their own thing, not all huddling together.
Yeah, really, I like having 2 in my army, and 2 is what I own, and it's probably just what I'll keep doing. Maybe I'll throw in Farsight in at one point, just because I really like the fluff for Farsight. But yeah, I would agree. I think it definitely needs to break into other codices, and not just the Tau one.
yeah, I'd like to see that. Similar rules.
But back into the commanders. So the commander that I use for my fusion commander that has 4 fusions on him, he's still a solid choice. I'll still probably play him in like every list, just because that's where I get my main anti-tank from, is him solely. He is the Enforcer battlesuit. I'm not sure if that was in the index or not, but they've also added another commander in this codex, which is the XV8 Crisis battlesuit. So that, I'm pretty sure this was only added for one purpose, and it was to make modeling easier. The Crisis suit is just your normal looking guy. You can buy him in a box of 3. He can just be a commander now. And there's a really tiny points difference between the Enforcer suit and the XV8 suit. I think it's like 6 points of difference. And literally the only difference between them is one looks, the Enforcer looks a lot cooler. He's taller. His suit, I don't know, I think it just looks cooler. But the only difference is 1 wound characteristic. So I think that's really the only reason they did that, was so people can model easier. They can buy a box of 3 and bam, have a commander right there. Yeah, the Cold Star we went over, really good. You'll probably see more Cold Stars now, just that you can take different weapons with them. The just plain Jane Ethereal really hasn't changed at all. Still good. The best ability that he has is re-rolling 1s for shooting for friendly units within 6 inches of him. It's good. The downside is marker lights are such a huge part of Tau that you probably shot your marker lights at something anyway. So like, I would have liked to see you maybe reroll ones on the wound or just something else. Like, there's so many ways for Tau to get reroll ones that the Ethereal's just kind of eh. But it's nice that you can get him on a little drone, so he's fast enough to follow other people around. That's my big gripe with most things is I like battle suits. That's why I collected Tau, is to get battle suits. So I want fast things. So when it comes to infantry, I don't really like them. But now that he's on a drone, I'm definitely considering him. We have Fireblade and Darkstrider. So I like to compare these two. Darkstrider is actually more expensive, and you probably won't see him nearly as much as Fireblade. I think Fireblade, now that Commander spam is gone, you're going to see Fireblade in probably every single Tau list, because he's cheap, he makes pulse shooting better, which you're always going to have pulse in probably any list you make. Drones, Fire Warriors, he just makes it better, he gives them an extra shot at half range. He also has a marker light on his rifle, and his marker light hits on a 2+. So that's kind of a guaranteed, like, I know I'm going to hit that unit for rerolling ones at least. He's only 45 points, I think. So he's pretty much an auto-include in every Tau list, which is kind of a shame. Like, you'll definitely see him a lot now that just commanders aren't a thing, and people want to make battalions. So he's going to be up often. But other than that, he's just still a normal Fire Warrior. None of his stats really changed at all. Long Strike, this part makes me the most sad, is just Hammerheads in general. Hammerheads still aren't great, unfortunately. For the stock Hammerhead, you're looking at about 160 points. Its railgun is still one shot, strength 10, -4, and does d6 damage. It's just kind of sad, because then you start comparing them to the broadside, which the broadside got a lot of points reduction, and the broadside's rail rifle automatically shoots 2 shots. So the broadside can do twice as much damage and has the bonus ability of if you roll a 6, you get an additional mortal wound. The broadside can do twice as much as a hammerhead can do at 40 points cheaper, which is kind of a bummer. And he is cheaper, he's not as survivable, but then you just put drones in front of him, which you can't put drones in front of a tank. So I think the hammerhead in general has really missed a mark.
So what does Long Strike give the hammerhead?
So Long Strike, he hits on a 2+ because he's Long Strike. He makes other hammerheads next to him. He gives them a +1 in ballistic skill. When he's shooting at a vehicle or monster, he adds a 1 to the wound roll, which is still good. Like, I could see an argument for just taking Long Strike, but to really get his ability going, you want to buy more than just him for all the other hammerheads adjacent to him.
But they're just getting +1 ballistic skill?
Exactly, yeah. They don't really get anything else besides that. But the downside is it's really hard to protect them. A hammerhead's pretty easy to kill. I mean, it's toughness 7, sorry. It's got 13 wounds, a 3 up armor save. I just feel like Long Strike's about 200 points. And for what he does, you can't really protect him at all. You can buy Crisis bodyguards, but unfortunately Crisis suits in general, which we'll get to in a minute, haven't changed in points at all either. So you're spending expensive Crisis suits to die for your expensive Long Strike. So ultimately, I probably won't use Long Strike still. If you compare him to a broadside, it's so much better. Especially in 8th edition, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the amount of shooting is much better than 1 really good shot. You might as well have 5 okay shots compared to just 1 really good one.
I would have liked to see them get the rule like the Imperial Guard got, that if they don't move or move half speed, they could shoot their main gun twice.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That might have made it a little bit more tempting.
Yeah, definitely. Or something similar to the Mechanicum's Doomcrawler, where at minimum you do 3 damage, just something like that. Their neutron laser, just to make it slightly better, because the downside is he in theory just does as much damage as a single las cannon does. He's strength 10, but I don't really care for strength 10 when I just have strength 8 broadsides shooting 2 shots.
Yeah, strength 10 doesn't matter too much because over strength 9.
Yeah.
Because there's not much that has toughness 9 on the battlefield.
Yeah, I can't even think of anything except big monsters. Alright, so that's Long Strike. Breacher teams really haven't changed at all. They got a points reduction, I think 1 or 2 points. Other than that, the rules are exactly the same. Strike teams are Fire Warriors. Still the same. They're a solid choice. You'll probably see Fire Warriors in just about every list you face. Kroot. Kroot Carnivores. All of the Kroot got cheaper in general. No rules changes really that I've noticed. I'm not a big Kroot player, so I haven't really looked into it. For a single infantry Kroot, I know it's 5 points, so you could really spam them, get them out in front of all of your Tau just to take all that psychic on or stop people from deep striking on you. That's pretty much the best way I see it using them, is meat shields, unfortunately, because they're cheap. We have the stealth battle suits. These guys are definitely a winner for the Codex. They just got cheaper. They're still as good, and they have some stratagems that work with them. I build my Tau as more of a stealth cadre kind of build, so I like stealth suits in general. So now that they've gotten cheaper, that makes me happy. Crisis suits. Unfortunately, these are kind of in the same boat as the Hammerhead right now. Crisis suits are good, but they didn't change it all from the Index, and you didn't really see them a lot in Index armies anyway. They got no additional rules, and they're still the exact same price. So unfortunately, you won't see these on the table as much. They're 3 wounds, they have a 3-up armor save. They're just really easy to chew through if someone really wants to kill them, which is unfortunate because the Crisis suit is like the face of the Tau, and you just won't see them because they're not worth taking right now. There could be an argument made if you take Farsight's Enclave, because there's a stratagem in there where I think it's 1 unit of battle suits or crisis suits, they get a +1 to wound. That's pretty decent. Crisis Bodyguards hasn't changed from the Index. Same thing as the crisis suit. The only difference between these guys is, I think, leadership and just the fact that they can jump in front of bullets, basically.
They have that sworn protector rule.
Yeah. So that's what I saw people doing with Long Strike in the Index, trying to make Long Strike viable then, was just putting these bodyguards in front of them. But you're still burning a lot of points to do that. Firesight Marksman. I know there's some meta out with these guys, but I can't figure out what it is. And if you know what it is, please leave a comment below, because I just see these guys keep popping up. But it's just the guy that controls these sniper drones. So I think it's the model where he's kneeling down in front of the little computer. He has a marker light. He helps sniper drones, so maybe that's the meta. So I'm not sure. If you leave a comment below informing me there, because I'm seeing these guys all over the place, but I don't understand how they're being used or abused. The Ghost Keel battlesuit is definitely a winner for this. The Ghost Keel got cheaper, and the guns got better. Before, the Cyclic Ion Raker, which is the coolest name of a weapon, I think. The Cyclic Ion Raker is much better now. Before, when you overcharged it, it was still heavy D6 when you overcharged. So I never wanted to overcharge because the base profile, you just got 6 shots. So if you overcharged, then you typically did less damage when you were not overcharging. But now it's actually worth it. You go up to Strength 8 on the overcharge, you get Heavy 6, so you're getting your 6 shots. -1 and does D3 damage. So all around better. I'm probably mainly going to play my Ghost Keels personally with a loadout of the Cyclic Ion Raker and then Burst Cannons on the shoulders. The reason I chose Burst Cannons and not Fusion is because I like to put the ATS on them for -1. That's all weapons on the Ghost Keel. So that means your Burst Cannons have a -1, which is really important. And again, your Cyclic Ion Raker goes down additionally, so when you overcharge, that's a -2. So definitely all around, the Ghost Keel's awesome. Oh, in addition to his bubble for -1 to hit him, has now grown down to just a 6-inch bubble. So you have to get a lot closer, which is nice.
Before it was 12?
Yeah, before it was 12. And it was harder to use just because his weapons, how I outfitted him, was typically up close. I like to get his fusion in. So now you have to work, you basically have to get in charge range, closer charge range to him. So the Ghost Keel, yeah, all-around winner. The only thing that still makes me sad about the Ghost Keel is just the fact that you have your stealth drones, and there's nothing to stop a player from just shooting the stealth drones and taking away one of your -1s. But that's okay. For the amount of good he got, I'm okay with them not changing that. Next up, we have the Riptide. Now, a lot of people are talking about the Riptide. because it got a lot better. It was useless in the index. I forget how many points it was then, but it was like 340 points for not a lot. That's why you saw people taking the Yavara suit from Forge World, because it's 400 points and 10 times better than the Riptide was. But now the guns are great. I'm a big fan of the Heavy Burst Cannon. It is Heavy 12, Strength 6, -1, and does 2 damage. I think that is all around fantastic, especially when you incorporate its Nova Charge. So when he Nova Charges, he gets 18, is it 18? Yep, Heavy 18, or its Ion Accelerator gains Heavy 6. So 18 shots at Strength 6, -1, 2 damage. That's pretty gross, especially against like something like Elite Infantry. Heck, I'll even shoot it at Horde armies too, because it's enough volume just to get there.
What's the range on that?
36 inches.
Oh, that's pretty good for a town.
Yep. And 36 inches is more than enough. Especially there's a stratagem, which we'll get to later, where you can activate 2 of these Nova Charges, which helps a lot with his survivability and versatility. I probably won't take the Ion Accelerator just as much. It's not bad, I just don't like D6 weapons, kind of like my issue with the Ghost Keel, because I always just think I'm going to roll a 1, which is typically what happens when I get D6 shots. But it's a good weapon when its base Strength 8 -3 and does D3 damage. When you overcharge it, it's Strength 9 -3 and does 3 damage. So it's solid. I'm just not the biggest fan of it in general. But
all of those vehicles that have multiple shots, like Space Marine Demolisher, the Demolisher Cannon,
yeah,
those just suck now because it's heavy D6 if it shoots at a large group of infantry.
It shouldn't be that wishy-washy, I feel like. It should be like, I don't even know, maybe multiple D3s or just something to get it more of a normal number instead of going from 1 to 6.
Yeah, it swings too much.
Yeah, which is why, again, I like the Heavy Burst Cannon, because I know when I overcharge I'm getting 18 shots. So I feel like it's more reliable all around than the Ion Accelerator.
So you're going to be adding Riptide to your...
Yes, I have one. I'm never going to do more than one. I think in the meta, people probably want to spam that, but I think 1 is perfect. And the reason I think that too is because that stratagem that lets you Nova Charge twice, you can only use that on 1 robot a turn. So whoever your 3-up Invuln goes on, everyone's just going to shoot the other Riptide. So you might as well just put it on 1 and make them make tough decisions. My personal list is probably going to be a Riptide and 2 Ghost Keels are going to be like my solid platform. So no matter what target you're shooting at, it's going to be difficult to kill it, is my plan at least. But yeah, definitely you'll see Riptides again. Hopefully they won't be spammed ridiculously. I personally don't think it's going to be that competitive to spam them, but we'll see. Pathfinders haven't changed. I'll probably be adding some for just cheap marker light support. They're a cool unit. They're probably one of my favorite infantry units just because of all the options that you get to take. It is an entire page of options in the book. And they just have cool access to multiple different kinds of drones. I'll definitely be painting up some in the future because I have a squad. Alright, so next up is the Piranha. The Piranha really hasn't changed at all. It's still cheap, it's fast, moves 16 inches. You can put a fusion in it. Pretty solid. I take Tau for battlesuits personally, not for speeders, but it's a solid choice. Nice and cheap. Tactical drones, they did change. All of them got more expensive. When I first saw that, I was really sad because I use a lot of drones and I just bought a ton. Like overall, I have like 40 drones, most of them gun drones, and gun drones got hit the hardest with a 4-point increase overall. They went from 8 to 12, which is pretty huge for just one unit. That's a 30% markup. And for the longest time, I didn't see any stat changes in them, and then I discovered that they can Manta Strike. So that's nice. You pay 4 points for it, which is kind of more than I wanted to since I have a ton of them. But just the option to deep strike suits down mid-board and then deep strike in all your drones around them to protect them is pretty good. You definitely have to have some tactics when you're doing it just because you don't have nearly as many drones if you have a similar list build like me. But yeah, they'll still be in every one of my lists. Drones are basically the lifeblood of Tau. We have Vespid Stingwings. I've just read on the internet they're still...
Stingwings good?
They're still bad.
Oh, they're still bad.
Yeah, and their sculpts are still really old.
Same sculpt, yeah, same sculpts.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no new sculpts entirely in this book. If you're looking for new models, there's none. Sorry. Croot Hounds. I've seen these around, pretty good. Still good just for blocking off your line so people can't get to you. They move 12 inches, so they're pretty fast. The Broadside, like I mentioned before, huge winner, went down in points. I don't see it a lot, but I like the Heavy Rail Rifle. I think the High Yield Missile Pods are just better. I think to add 2 of them, it's 50 points instead of the Heavy Rail Rifle, which is like adding 35-ish. But the Heavy Rail Rifle, it shoots 60 inches, Heavy 2, Strength 8, -4, D6 damage, and on a 6, additional mortal wounds. That's exactly the same as what the Hammerhead does, but 2 shots instead of 1. So all around, good. I'd like to add 1 or 2 in my army. But my army, I just want it to be full of speed, so I probably won't add more than that. But definitely great artillery piece. Easily protected by drones too, which is nice. The Hammerhead, we've really already gone on over. The Sky Ray, Seeker Missiles got a lot better, which is great. Before, they did a single mortal wound when they hit, which was a real bummer. But now, the Sky Ray, it's very similar to a Hunter-Killer Missile for Space Marines. It's Strength 8, -2, and does D6 damage now. The Sky Ray, I believe, comes with 6 Seeker Missiles. You can shoot them all at once. They're one time only, which is what they've always been. So kind of a bummer. I can't decide whether this is points efficient or not. It's about 160 points for this loadout. It has 2 marker lights on it additionally, and then you can get missile drones underneath it, and that's about 160 points. So you really basically want to fire all your marker lights at a big target and then shoot all these Seeker Missiles at that same target. That's how I see using this the most efficient way possible. Definitely getting up to 5 marker light hits just so your ballistic skill can then go up to a 2+, because these guys are 3+, which is nice. But yeah, I think you'll definitely start seeing some Sky Rays just because Hammerheads aren't the way to go, so I'm pretty sure Sky Rays will be around. Sniper drones stayed the same. The Devilfish, same rules, just got cheaper, so that's good. I just mainly used, once I drop my troops out, I like to crash my Devilfish into stuff so it can't shoot at me, and it typically survives because it's a vehicle. The Fighters and Bombers haven't changed at all. They're still really not an ideal choice, but rules-wise, they're still the same. The Tide Walls, I think we're going to start seeing more of these. Tide Wall just to protect our Fire Warrior infantry, just because of this combo with Fireblade and Fire Warriors is so strong, and that's what people are going to do most lists, unfortunately. You'll see them probably barricaded in these shield line walls. It's nice because when you shoot at them, there's a chance that it bounces back and does a mortal wound on you, which is pretty neat. I find the fortification rules just a little bit funny because it's basically the exact same as being in a normal transport, just the fact that the infantry can shoot out of it now. So if someone charges your wall, that means that your Fire Warriors can't shoot, pretty much, because they're in contact with an enemy. Which is new and different, but I think it's cheap enough that it's a solid choice. What you're going to see, at least what my mind goes to first, is the Tidewall drone port. Putting Fireblade in there with 9 Fire Warriors, and then getting 4 marker lights in the drone port. I think is going to be a popular choice because Fireblade being in there, you use the ballistic skill of whoever you want in there to control the drones with. So since he has a 2-up, you're getting 4 drones who can get 2-up marker lights. They're going to be a huge target, and they'll probably die pretty quickly, but I think it's a solid points investment for what you get. And then you're protecting 1 squad of Fire Warriors that get to shoot 50% more shots, which is nice. The Tidewall gun rig, unfortunately, is still terrible. It's ballistic skill 5+. I would have liked to see it get better. It's the same gun that's on the Hammerhead, so just 1 shot. It's a lot of points for not a lot of return, unfortunately. Next up, we have the Storm Surge. A lot of people go back and forth on whether or not the Storm Surge is still good in this codex. I think he's still a solid choice. There's a stratagem that lets a battlesuit go back up to the top line of stats for a turn. So just the fact that that stratagem exists, I think, makes the Storm Surge still a viable option. The rules did not change at all, none that I can see, for the Storm Surge. I don't have one, and I don't really like to play him just because he's slow. He only moves 6 inches for being as huge as he is. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the units. Yeah, again, he just gets better. He has 20 wounds, toughness 7, so he's definitely hard to chew through. He's only got the 3-up save, so if he's focused on, he'll definitely go down fast. Next up, we are going to go into all of the sept tenets. So for people who don't play Tau, this is just chapter tactics. We'll start off with what I think is the worst, or at least it's my least favorite. It's probably pretty solid, but I just don't like it, which is the Daelith Sept. So these guys are all about camouflage, which is also cool. It would have been cool for my army because I like all that stealth stuff. But basically, if you don't move, fall back, basically move for any reason, you can benefit from cover even if you're standing out in the open. So this just encourages you to not move and sit and be a gun line, which is boring to play in most games. That's just why I don't like it. Next up, which I think is the next worst, would probably be the Farsight Enclaves, unfortunately. I was really hoping they'd get something a little better. They reroll wound rolls of 1 within 6 inches of an enemy. And the biggest deal breaker of that is 6 inches of the enemy. That's really close. Like, my suits are fast, but to get enough guys where that actually matters within 6 inches of an enemy is not worth it. It does not seem like enough payoff to get that close to an enemy. Especially, regardless of if that enemy is close combat oriented or not, Tau don't want to be close to it. So the fact that it could be something really, really scary, and that's all you're getting as a bonus, is kind of rough. What do you think about that trait?
I don't know. It depends on if you'd have to build for it.
Yeah, you definitely have to build for it.
And if you're mostly short-range fusion, that seems like it'd be pretty good. You're wounding tanks on 3s, rerolling 1s when you wound them.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. It's like having a Space Marine lieutenant nearby.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is if you have enough, you kill the stuff that was at 6 inches away from you, and it's not a threat anymore.
Yeah. I just feel like with that, like, if something's within 6 inches of most of my army, I'm going to murder it regardless of having a reroll of 1 to wound.
I think it's decent, but you'd have to build your army to
It's definitely not
take
the strongest. But it's nice because all the other traits, they kind of help the Farsight Enclave out and makes them better. This is definitely probably the worst part of the Farsight Enclave. The Viola, I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's the sept that you see on all the box art now. This one is pretty cool. I like this one a lot, actually, especially for my build. I didn't realize it until all these traits came out, but I have mainly assault weapons in my army. So this is great because it turns rapid fire into assault, which could be bad if you're doing like Fire Warrior spam. You would not want this trait for that. But if you're not and you have mainly assault like me, in addition, models with this tenet do not suffer the penalty to their hit rolls for advancing and firing assault weapons. So if I pick this trait, basically my army just got faster, and I thought it was already pretty fast to begin with. And there's no modifier for me moving with all of my assault weapons, which is very cool.
So that Gold Star battlesuit can go how fast in fusion now?
So he can go 40 inches.
And fusion with no penalty.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
Which is why you're seeing more Cold Stars now, is probably because of that. But in addition, the funny thing about this tenet too is because of the Master of War ability, you can get a very similar ability to this. In fact, it's the exact same thing that you could get. So basically all Tau have access to this ability, but it's only once per game that you get it through Master of War. I believe it's Montka. So if you're playing Gloria, you never want to use Montka and only use Kalyan, because Montka would be a waste of your time. The next is probably the Borkan. Originally everyone was raving about this one, and it is good. I just thought it was going to be better for my army personally, so I played as it first. Now, the only time I think I would take this trait is if, one, you're doing a gun line and you have a lot of heavies. Basically what Borkan does is increases 6 inches of the maximum range for any rapid fire and heavy weapons. So if you're doing a gun line, this is the one for you. Fire Warriors, their pulse rifles are now ridiculously far.
36 net with them?
I think so, or 40, somewhere like that. And you can also get the pulse accelerator drone, which makes it even further. So range is definitely not an issue there. With my build that you've seen on the channel, this only affects the Ghost Keel's Cyclic Ion Rakers on their arms and the Yavara. Now, if you're taking a Yavara still, Borkan makes him disgustingly good. Because the issue he was having before is he's so deadly, but he's so close range. That flamethrower is only 8-inch range. The main gun's only 12-inch range. As soon as you put this on, he goes to 14-inch range for his flamethrower, which is a huge deal because that's his best weapon. Unfortunately, you have to start him on the table and then fly him off. So then when you fly him back on in that next turn, he can actually shoot when he comes down, which is nice with his flamethrower.
So flamethrower is heavy?
Yes, the flamethrower is heavy, which is kind of weird. I think it's the only probably flamethrower that's heavy in 40k that I know of. But yeah, so if you have a Yavara, it's almost worth it, even if you don't have any other heavy weapons and you have one Yavara, it's almost worth it just to take Borkan just for the Yavara, because it makes him so much better, and you can actually hopefully shoot him before he dies. Normally that always happens to me, is he dies right before he gets to deliver anything.
Not in our last battle.
That's true. It's pretty epic. Next best one is the Sasi Sept. This one's pretty cool. I'm interested to use this one. So it adds 1 to the leadership characteristics of the models with this tenant. That's one thing the Tau have an issue with, is leadership. So everything gets a boost, which is always good, especially when you start getting screwed with psychic stuff. That'll come into play a lot. And drones too. For some reason drones, this is my pet peeve also, that drones can jump in front of a battlesuit for savior protocols, but they have a leadership of 6. So like, they're fearless to protect their battlesuits, but then they're cowards. It doesn't make any sense to me. But they get an increase, so that's good. In addition, in the shooting phase, you can reroll a single failed hit roll when a unit with this tenant shoots. So that's very similar to the Salamanders, right, for Space Marines. Not as good because the Salamanders can reroll the wounds too, right? Like they can pick which one they want to do. But still, rerolling hits for Tau in a shooting army, that's great. Especially when you miss with the fusion and you don't have a marker light on something, can be a really big deal. So I think we're going to see a lot of this one. A lot of people are raving about this one. The Tau Sept, I think, is hands down the best. The other reason I like it too is because it's easy to remember. The entire army gets a 5-up Overwatch. That's counteracting one of the biggest flaws the Tau have, is being touched in close combat. Now, people are going to think twice, especially since you still have for the greater good, so your friends within 6 inches of you can help you out in defending yourself. Now everybody's doing that on a 5-up. It's pretty scary. Alright, so next up we have the stratagems. I'm only going to cover less than half of these because they're the ones you're going to use the most. Starting off, the multi-spectrum sensor suite. Use the stratagem before a battlesuit unit from your army shoots. Enemy units cannot claim the benefit of cover against shots made. Only 1 command point. Pretty solid. Automated repair systems. 2 command points to heal a battlesuit, D3 wounds. The reason this is a really good one is because it can get you up to the top bracket. Make you go from 5 to 4s in all suits cases. That one will probably be used a lot. Neuroweb System Jammer. Use the stratum at the start of the enemy shooting phase. Pick an enemy unit that is within 18 inches of the battlesuit commander of your army, and they gain a -1 to hit. Solid. Just give someone -1, especially if your enemy has a big Death Star unit. That's what you really want to put it on, is just giving them a -1 right off the bat for 2 command points. Pretty solid still. The command and control node, this one's pretty cool. Use a stratagem at the start of your shooting phase. Pick a Sept commander from your army. That commander may not shoot this phase, but 1 Sept battlesuit unit from your army that is within 6 inches of the commander may reroll failed wound rolls in this phase. So that's a very Farsight one to me, at least. Farsight doesn't have a lot of shooting, so just make him not shoot, and then all of your battlesuits, especially if you have a big battlesuit unit, I forget what the max amount you can have is, but it's either 6 or 10. But all of them, rerolling their wounds can be pretty cool. Only 1 command point too. It's hard to pull off, it is situational, but I think it's worth mentioning. Uplink Marker Light. This one is the one we saw from Chapter Approved. Essentially, when you hit, you just add D3 Marker Lights to that for 1 command point.
D3 +1 Marker Lights?
It is, yeah, but the one you hit with doesn't count. So essentially, it's just getting D3 Marker Lights on. So people use it when you hit 4, and on or if you hit 3, and on a 3-up you gain your 5 marker lights. That's what I always see it used now. Branched Nova Charge. This is one I mentioned previously. For a single command point, use the stratagem when you choose a Yavara Battlesuit Nova Reactor. You may choose 2 effects from those listed rather than 1. So you can give him a 3-up invuln, and you can juice up your weapons. You can also make him, the other option is to move 2d6 after you shoot.
Well, that's a Riptide.
Yes.
Riptide.
Yeah, just the Riptide. Yeah, it's not for the Yavara, it's just Riptide. But yeah, you'll see that used a lot. Obviously, if they have 1 Riptide, they're going to be using it. 3-up invuln, I don't have to explain how awesome it is. We'll skip all the way down to Wall of Mirrors. That name used to be really, really scary in 7th edition. It's not nearly as bad now. But what the Wall of Mirror does is essentially if you have a Ghost Keel and you have stealth suits that are within 6 inches of the Ghost Keel for 1 command point, you can basically take them off the board and then put them back on within 12 inches of the Ghost Keel as long as you're farther than 9 away from an enemy. So basically the Ghost Keel can just slingshot around your stealth suits. So it just gives you more maneuverability. If they can't make it to an objective or an objective's up on a rooftop or something, he can slingshot them up. And I feel like Wall of Mirrors is really the right thing to name this ability. You don't know quite where they are. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
I'll probably use that one for sure. Stimulant Injector, really solid choice. Use the strat at the start of the turn. Choose a battlesuit model from your army with the wounds characteristics of 10 or more. And basically, you go back up to your top bracket. This is the one I mentioned before. For 1 command point, really good. Storm Surge will probably use it, so if you are going to gun down a Storm Surge, you got to kill it all the way, basically. Experimental Weaponry. For 1 command point, this is Borkin only. Unit fires from your army a ranged weapon that makes a random number of attacks. You can reroll one of those dice used to determine the number of attacks made. So this is if you screw up on the Yavara's Flamethrower. This is the biggest one. If you roll a 1 for a command point, you can reroll it. Not great, but I can see it being used. For 2 command points, the Positional Relay. This is basically your MB3 recon drone. You can deep strike on him, which is very cool. So it gets you within range. Again, Farside Enclaves will probably benefit from this one the most, just because they can get in their bubble of being able to shoot you with their reroll 1s to wound. The Orbital Marker Distribution Uplink is one of my favorites. Also, awesome name. This is only for the Sia Sept, which is one of our best. I ranked it as number 2. And essentially, you just pick a unit, and every unit within 6 inches of him gets a marker light on him. So I think that's pretty solid, especially if you're out of marker lights. If they just killed all your drones and you have no way to do marker lights, this is awesome. Drop Zone Clear. This is for Farsight Enclave only. Use the stratagem at the start of your shooting phase. Choose a Farsight Enclave Battlesuit unit from your army that was set up on the battlefield using its Manta Strike ability this turn. Add 1 to hit rolls for that unit this phase. So +1 ballistics heal. Always awesome. Alright, and that is all of these stratagems. Next up, we will go into Warlord traits. Alright, so for our Warlord traits, we have our 6 generic ones. The generic ones are all decent. The first one, Precision of the Hunter, reroll wound rolls of 1 made for your Warlord against enemy vehicles or monsters. Probably won't be used a whole lot, it's just not the most useful. Through Unity Devastation. This one's cool, at least the name is. In each of your shooting phases, you can pick an enemy unit that is visible to your Warlord until the end of the phase. Each time you make a wound roll of 6 against that unit for an attack made by the friendly Sept unit within 6 inches of your Warlord. The armor penetration characteristic of the attack is improved by 1. It's a mouthful. So basically, what people are using this is you make Fireblade your Warlord, and you have a ton of Fire Warriors around him, and basically, all those Fire Warriors have -1 on their pulse rifles. That's going to be really the only time you see that one used, just because it is kind of situational. A Ghost Walks Among Us. Your Warlord advances 6 inches. Pretty lame. I probably won't use it. Through Boldness Victory, if your Warlord is within 12 inches of an enemy unit at the start of your shooting phase, you can reroll failed hit rolls made for your Warlord until the end of the phase. This one's alright. The fact that a commander has a ballistic skill of 2+, and then you just shoot a single marker light, you're rerolling them anyway. So for this one, I personally don't think it's that great. Exemplar of Kauyon, this hasn't changed. You can reroll failed hit rolls for your Warlord as long as they have not moved this turn. If they have moved for any reason, they lose this trait until the start of their next turn. So solid, you'll probably see this one and then the next one used a lot. Exemplar of Monka, your Warlord can advance and still shoot as if they hadn't advanced this turn. You'll probably see Exemplar of Kauyon more, just because I think it helps more in general. Next up, the Sept Warlord traits. All of these are fairly good. The Tau one, which is our strongest Sept choice, roll a d6 for each mortal wound inflicted on your Warlord, and on a 5+, your mortal wound is ignored. That's probably the lamest one. It was meant to, I'm sure, deter psychers, but that's really not enough to take, I feel like. It's too situational. The Violora, the next one. If your Warlord has the Master of War, Volley Fire, or Failure is not an option ability, the range of the ability is increased to 9 inches. So that ability is normally 6 inches. So the fact that you don't have to just smash all your models together closer is nice. You can spread out a little bit more. In addition, you get a command point, which I think Tau have some issues with just because most of their options, I swear it's like 60% of all options are elites. So that's always great. The Daelith one is pretty cool. Whilst within 12 inches of the Warlord, friendly Kroot and Vespid units gain the For the Greater Good ability. So they can help Overwatch, if Kroot and Vespid are your thing. Beacon of Honor for the Sisia. Friendly Sisia units within 6 inches of this model reduce the number of models that flee as a result of a failed morale test by 1. Probably never ever take that one. I just don't see it as useful. I'd rather just take the Exemplar of Kauyon or through Unity Devastation, probably. The Borkan, for each hit roll of a 6+ made for your Warlord, add 1 to the wound roll for that attack. So if you have a Fusion Commander, and he starts rolling 6s, and on addition with all those d6s, you're doing +1 for every 6 you get. Still, 6s aren't common. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you get 5 marker lights, so you have +1 ballistic skill, does that mean on 5s that would work?
I don't know.
I think it would. I'm always kind of confused on how that rule works exactly when you start modifying.
I think so. For each hit roll of 6 or higher, made for your Warlord, add 1 to the wound roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
So this can potentially be pretty solid with 5 marker lights. The Farside Enclave one is cool. It's kind of a mouthful. Your Warlord can perform Heroic Intervention if they are within 6 inches. So it's typically 3, correct, for Heroic Intervention. So that's nice because you can have a front row of guys, and then Farsight has a jetpack, so you just jump over your guys and get into combat, which is where he wants to be, the only Tau. Your enemy has completed all their charge moves. Your Warlord can move up to 6 inches when performing a Heroic Intervention, so long as they end the move closest to the nearest enemy model, which is the same as the typical rule. In addition, if your Warlord was charged, or performed a Heroic Intervention, essentially you get to reroll all failed hit rolls, which is pretty awesome. That's probably one of my favorite traits, just because it's cool and very cool to Farsight. So that is all the Warlord traits. The last thing we have is Signature Systems, which if you don't play Tau, this is relics. I'm only going to cover a few. The one you're going to see all the time, because it is hands down the best one here, is the Pure Tide Engram Neurochip. So basically you get command points on a 6-up if you do a stratagem. So if I have a stratagem that's 3 command points, I roll 1 die, and on a 6 I just get the 1 command point back, I believe. But this also works for me and your opponent, which is good. And I think Tau will have a problem with command points in general, so I think we'll see this the most. In addition, it's got a little side perk, which is great for a Fusion Commander. You can reroll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, or 1 damage roll made. So rerolling, if you're within Melta range, then rerolling 1 of those wounds on your Fusion is great. So that one you're probably going to see most of the time. The other one's worth mentioning. The Onager Gauntlet isn't, but it's so cool. It's like a power fist for one of your commanders. It's strength 10, AP -4, and D6 damage. So it's a railgun attached to his fist, which is pretty cool.
It's terrifying.
The biggest downside about this is you can only do 1 single attack with it. So right then, that just makes me not want to take it. If you could do all of his attacks with it, they only have 4. But if you could do all of them, then it would be worth taking. But since you only get a single attack, it just probably looks cool, and that's about it. The next one I really like is the thermoneutronic projector. This is a flamethrower that is strength 6, AP -1, and does 2 damage. A lot of people put this on a cold star and then have the cold star just fly around with this weapon because it's pretty solid. This is only offered for the Veloria Sept, the one that's all about speed, basically. The next one I like, which is cool, but it's kind of in the same boat as the Onager Gauntlet, is the Fusion Blades, which is so cool. This is only offered for Farside Enclaves, but if you have at least 2 fusion guns, you can just get this, and you essentially have a melee version of it. So the ranged version is exactly the same as a normal fusion, but the melee version is actually the same as the shooting profile, which is strength 8 -4 and does D6 damage. The cool thing about it is especially if you read the description, it's basically like he has short lightsabers coming out of his hands that he's punching through. But the downside, just like the Onager Gauntlet, is he can only make 2 attacks out of his 4 with this weapon. So you probably won't see it a lot, but it is cool. It's definitely the rule of cool. So that's basically it for at least my review of the Tau. I mainly focused on the battle suit portion because if you're not going to put any battle suits in Tau, why collect Tau?
So what would you say is the biggest winner in Codex Tau?
The biggest winner overall, I'd probably give it to the Riptide, because he was garbage before. I don't know how many points difference he's changed, but he is definitely so much better. And then the number 2 place would probably be to the Ghost Keel, which is nice.
Who would be the handout worst unit?
The worst unit would probably be a tie between the Hammerhead and the Crisis Suit. This is just for me. There's worse units in the book, like probably Kroot would be one of the worst, but the things I wanted to change would definitely be those. The Hammerhead, the stock Hammerhead is 160 points, and I believe the Ghost Keel, when you give it everything that you want to give it, is like 180, and the Ghost Keel is going to do more damage and survive better every time.
Yeah, all right. Very cool.
What unit do you like out of all? I know you don't like Tau that much, but what's your favorite unit that the Tau have?
My favorite Tau unit?
Yeah.
Is a dead one. I don't know. The Riptide looks pretty tasty now with the upgraded weapons.
Yeah.
Those 18 shots is kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
if you run Primaris Marines.
Oh, yeah, because 2 damage each.
So that looks really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. Overall, I think this book is great. I think they did miss the mark on the Hammerhead and the Crisis Suit, but I'm sure we'll get that updated and chapter approved when we come back around to it next year. But other than that, this is a great book. Definitely helps the Tau a lot. It's not overboard like I think the Guardsmen and the Eldar are. I think their codexes are a little crazy. But for what you get in this Tau Codex, I think it's very well balanced. And I've seen previews for the Necrons, and I think we're on par with the Necrons, which is nice.
Well, that's good. I'm curious to see what the hardcore tournament guys will abuse out of this book.
Yeah, and my first thought, trying to abuse it and break it, was doing commander spam, actually, and just making a bunch of separate detachments. Getting dirt cheap troops, and then just doing as many commanders as you can. Even if it's just patrols, you just get a unit of drones that can now deep strike with you, and then you just keep buying patrol detachments and commanders and stapling it. Now, nobody play like that, but that's the first thing
most tournaments restrict the number of...
Oh, do they?
You can have.
Yeah, I've never played in a tournament, so I don't know, but that's the first thing I would do.
All right. Well, folks, there you go. That is a look at Codex Tau for Warhammer 8th Edition. We hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please go ahead and leave a message down below. Tell us what you think. Tell Jake if he's way off base and totally wrong about a unit, or if you agree with them. We'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching, and keep on wargaming.